Once upon a time, in the heart of the African savannah, there lived a mighty lion named Simba. Simba was known as the king of the beasts, and he ruled his domain with pride and authority. But Simba had one flaw. He was incredibly greedy. Every animal feared him because he would take more than he needed and often demanded tributes from the smaller creatures. One day Simba gathered the animals and declared, "From now on, every animal must bring me food once a week. If you fail, I will hunt you down and feast on your entire family." Among them was a clever hare named Nuru. Nuru was small, but her mind was sharp, and she was determined to find a way to free her fellow creatures from Simba's tyranny. When it was Nuru's turn to bring food to the lion, she came up with a plan. She found a small basket and placed a few scraps of meat inside. Then she delayed her journey until the sun was high in the sky, knowing Simba would grow impatient. By the time Nuru reached the lion's den, Simba was furious. His growls shook the earth. "Why are you late? And why have you brought so little food?" he roared. Nuru, feigning exhaustion, bowed low and said, "Oh, mighty king, forgive me. I would have been here sooner and with a larger offering, but another lion blocked my way. He claimed he was the true king of the savannah and said you were unworthy of tribute." Simba's eyes widened with rage. "Another lion? In my territory? Impossible. Where is he?" Nuru pointed toward the river. "He waits by the water, your majesty. He said he would defeat you if you dared to challenge him." In rage, Simba raced to the river, with Nuru following close behind. When they arrived, Nuru led Simba to the water's edge and pointed to the clear, still surface. "Look, there he is. He's waiting for you." Simba peered into the water and saw his own reflection staring back at him. But Simba, not understanding mirrors, thought it was another lion. He roared loudly, and the reflection roared back. Simba grew even angrier and leaped into the water to attack his rival. The river was deep, and Simba, not being the best swimmer, struggled to stay afloat. Meanwhile, Nuru watched from the riverbank, a sly smile on her face. Simba managed to climb out, drenched and humiliated. He glared at Nuru and said, "You tricked me." Nuru bowed again and replied, "Oh, mighty king, it was not I who tricked you, but your own pride and anger. You saw an enemy where there was none. Perhaps now you'll understand the burden your greed has placed on others." Simba, tired and soaked, realized the wisdom in Nuru's words. From that day forward, he stopped demanding tributes and learned to take only what he needed. The animals, in turn, respected him as a fair ruler, and peace returned to the savannah. Long ago, in a small village surrounded by lush forests, there lived a wise and cunning tortoise named Kofi. Though Kofi was slow-moving, his mind was quick, and he often used his cleverness to outwit others. One day, while exploring the forest, Kofi stumbled upon a magnificent drum lying under a baobab tree. The drum shimmered with a magical glow, and inscribed on its surface were words that read, "Whoever beats this drum shall have their wishes fulfilled." Kofi's eyes sparkled with delight. He tapped the drum lightly, and to his amazement, a feast appeared before him. Fruits, roasted meats, and bowls of steaming soup. Kofi ate his fill and grinned. "With this drum, I'll never go hungry again." Kofi returned to the village and began to show off his magical drum. Whenever he was in need, he would beat the drum and summon whatever he desired. The villagers were astonished and begged Kofi to share his treasure, but Kofi refused. "This drum is mine alone," he said. "If you want something, find your own way to get it." One day, word of the drum reached the lion chief of the forest. Curious and envious, the lion summoned Kofi and demanded to see the drum. Kofi, wary of the lion's intentions, reluctantly agreed but warned, "The drum's power can only be used wisely. If misused, it brings great trouble." The lion ignored Kofi's warning and struck the drum with all his might. Instead of a feast, the ground shook, and a fierce storm erupted. Trees were uprooted, and rivers overflowed. The lion roared in fear and tried to stop the storm, but the more he struck the drum, the worse the chaos became. Kofi, seeing the lion's plight, called out, "You ignored my warning, but I will help you if you promise to return the drum and leave it in peace." The lion, desperate, agreed. Kofi tapped the drum lightly, and the storm subsided. True to his word, the lion returned the drum and retreated into the forest. Kofi, realizing the danger of the drum's power, decided to bury it under the baobab tree where he had found it. Some things are too powerful for any one creature to own, he said. Wisdom lies in knowing when to let go. From that day on, Kofi lived a humble life, sharing his wit and stories with the villagers, who admired him not for his possessions, but for his wisdom. In the olden days when animals talked and the earth was young, there lived a clever spider named Anansi. Known far and wide for his cunning ways, Anansi often found himself caught in tricky situations of his own making. He grew tired of people calling him sly instead of wise, and believed that if he could gather all the wisdom into a single pot, so Anansi set out on a journey, traveling far and wide, collecting wisdom from every corner of the earth. He went to the mountains and spoke to the wise elders, and from the roots of the baobab tree, he gathered the mysteries of the earth. Anansi placed every bit of wisdom he collected into a clay pot. The pot grew heavier with each piece of knowledge he added, but Anansi didn't mind. He believed that once he had all the wisdom, everyone would bow to him, and he would be the master of the world. But Anansi, being greedy, did not want to share this wisdom with anyone. Why should I share when I've done all the hard work to gather it, he thought. I will keep it for myself and be greater than all. To protect his treasure, Anansi decided to hide the pot where no one could find it. He looked around his hut and saw a tall, sturdy tree near his home. The top of that tree will be the perfect place to hide my wisdom, he exclaimed. Anansi tied the pot of wisdom to his belly with vines and began to climb the tree. But the pot was heavy and it kept slipping, knocking against the tree trunk and making it difficult for Anansi to climb. Frustrated, he slipped back down and tried again. But the same thing happened. As Anansi struggled, his young son, Intakuma, walked by and watched him. Intakuma tilted his head and asked, "Father, what are you doing?" "I'm climbing this tree to hide my pot of wisdom," Anansi replied, irritated by his son's interruption. Intakuma looked at the way the pot was tied and laughed. "Father, you've tied the pot in front of you. It's getting in your way. Why don't you tie it to your back instead? That way it won't block your path." Anansi froze. How had his son, a mere child, figured out something he hadn't thought of? Here he was, with all the wisdom of the world in his pot, yet he couldn't see such a simple solution. Anansi untied the pot and strapped it to his back, as Intakuma suggested. Pondered, the pot began to wobble. Before he could grab it, the vines snapped, and the pot fell from the tree. It hit the ground and shattered into countless pieces. The wisdom within scattered far and wide, carried by the winds, rivers, and animals. People from all walks of life began to find bits of the wisdom. A farmer in the field picked up a shard and learned how to plant crops better. A healer by the river found a fragment and learned how to cure illnesses. Even children playing under the trees stumbled upon pieces of wisdom that taught them stories and songs. Anansi climbed down from the tree and looked at the scattered pot. At first he was furious, but as he saw the joy and understanding the fragments brought to others, he began to laugh. "It seems wisdom is not meant to belong to one person alone," Anansi said. "It is best when it is shared." From that day on, Anansi stopped hoarding wisdom. Instead, he became the storyteller, weaving tales that spread knowledge, humor, and lessons to everyone who listened.